Hello, everyone. I'm Cole Altom, a managing editor here at Stratfor, and with me today is Matt Bay, our energy analyst, with our monthly Compass preview. Now, Matt, it's the dead of summer here in Texas, so it's only fitting that our feature story would talk about the Arctic. The big news coming out is that Shell is about to resume exploratory operations up in some Arctic waters between Russia and Alaska. And if they're going to such extreme ends of the Earth, you have to think that they think it's worth their while.
Right. So, I mean, they've been looking at it for a very long time. This is not necessarily completely and entirely new. People have been going out to the Arctic looking for all kinds of resources. But, nowadays, global warming, the stuff's getting a lot easier for them to do. In 2008, the USGS released a study saying that the Arctic might hold up to around 412 billion barrels of oil equivalent. That's obviously a lot when you think about how much we actually consume on a daily basis. So a lot of oil companies are actually looking at that as a potential prize. And the Arctic is already, for the United States, when you look up the onshore stuff in Alaska, it's been a very important thing for a long time.
So if there's all this potential, why haven't we seen more offshore drilling? Correct me if I'm wrong, but almost nearly all of the drilling so far has been onshore in the Arctic.
Right. So all the production for the most part is onshore. So that's been going on since the 1970s, for example. So, I mean, I think the first time that they actually found oil in Alaska, the northern part of Alaska inside the Arctic Circle, would have been in the 60s, basically. So it's kind of progressed from there going out towards the ocean, for example. So there are two actual developments that are now in production, but both of those were discovered in the 1980s. So people have actually been drilling offshore for a while, but it's been much more of a slow process actually going from actually finding something and then actually developing it. So the two that actually are online now, there's one in Norway, one that's in Russia. They were both discovered in the 1980s. They both ended up coming online within the last 5-10 years, and they both were massively over budget, massively expensive, and it's just something that took a long time to actually develop.
Well, and that's pretty typical for some of these projects, right? It's very slow
and all offshore
moving.
In general, for that matter.
Fair. Okay, so now that they have some of the technologies that they can drill in these waters, and now that the polar ice caps are in remission a little bit, some of these companies can now go into these waters, but that doesn't mean it's going to be easy for them, right? What are some of the risks they might encounter when they go there?
So there are a lot of different risks. So one of the things, even if you ignore the technology aspects of it, if you have to deal with just the logistics, we're talking about a very isolated region of the world. If you look on the northeastern coast of Alaska, the northwestern coast of Alaska, there's nothing there. The biggest cities that you find have 5,000 people, and that's about it. And then the next one would be thousands of miles away. So you have to actually set up all your health and safety stuff, so the safety of your workers, the equipment that you have to do. So Shell, for example, needs to have a giant flotilla to actually, have a convoy. They go out there so they have everything they need to do their drilling, because it's a very short drilling season. Even with global warming happening, they can't drill, continuously throughout the year. So there's all these kinds of other aspects, just aside from the technical, that have to be overcome. And there's also then the technological ones. So, I mean, this is actually something that is common in deep water projects and offshore projects, is that they actually slowly over time kind of incrementally add one kind of innovation to another innovation, and then over time they slowly get and solve specific problems for specific projects. So what that means for the deep water stuff is that we're actually going to see, one or two kind of come online over the next 10 years, and then maybe after that we'll see some more stuff happening.
Well, 10 years is a long time. So before we go, let's talk about the opportunity cost of drilling there, right? These people are going to go in there. It's going to take 10 years, maybe 20, maybe longer if everything even goes right. What kind of technologies in the meantime are going to catch up with them in the next 20, 30 years?
So one of the things that's actually being worked on now by Acre Solutions is a drill ship that is designed to kind of push away the broken ice away from the vessel itself. If ice actually becomes under the ship and actually it starts to affect the actual drilling operations of the riser and things like that, that becomes a much bigger challenge to deal with. So that is one potential solution that could have a pretty big impact on drilling in icy environments, for example. And then there's also the case that, other types of technologies like car batteries, things like that, will eliminate or at least lessen the need for oil or oil growth or anything like that. So if we play those issues out, it's an open question really as to whether or not the Arctic will ever become more than a niche. I mean, the potential's there, obviously, but it just really depends on a lot of things. And Shell recognizes that. Shell is invested all over the place. But I mean, at the same time, they're an E&P company, and E&P companies have to reinvest continuously in order to just sustain production. And looking at all the examples of oil production declining in countries, I mean, it makes sense that eventually, in their eyes, this is something that they at least have to explore. And the same is true for Russia. The same is true for Norway and all these other places.
All right, Matt, thanks very much for joining us. You've given us a lot to think about. If you want to read more about this topic, our July Compass edition publishes on July 6th. Thanks very much.